All right, so let's talk about our digestive system a little bit. So I know you guys are familiar with this. What does it mean to digest food? So if we say you digest food, Dan, what does that mean?
We break food down into
Yeah, it breaks down food into very, very simple things. So the chickenish tenders you guys just ate. So on the outside is that breading stuff. That's probably like breadcrumbs or something. So it's bread. The chicken itself is almost all protein. If you dipped it in barbecue sauce, then there's mostly sugar. If you got corn, there's like some fiber. There's some different nutrients and some sugar. But anyway, that stuff gets broken down into very simple things. Like the bread part gets broken down into simple sugars. The chicken part, the protein, gets broken into amino acids. The fat that's in there gets broken into fatty acids. They get digested into tiny little molecules that your body can actually absorb. Okay? So it's our digestive system that allows that to happen. Do you have questions?
I was going to ask for mustard.
So that's mostly, mustard is like vinegar mixed with, you know what other stuff?
What makes it
Yellow.
yellow?
Turmeric is a seasoning thing.
No.
All right, anyway,
Dijon's.
the digestion actually starts in our mouth. So in our mouth, there's two types of digestion that takes place. They're called mechanical and chemical digestion. Mechanical digestion is basically just tearing up food into smaller parts. That's what mechanical digestion is. And so as you chew your food, okay, this guy eating this giant veggie burger, your teeth, what? Yeah, I eat veggie burgers all the time.
Is there that be Mr.
So as you chew on that food, you tear it up, you're smushing it, you're crushing it into smaller physical pieces. It's still little chunks of lettuce and veggie burger and bread and so forth, but it's in smaller pieces, which allows digestion to happen faster. But also in our mouth is where chemical digestion begins. There are certain chemicals, we call them enzymes, that are specific to a certain nutrient, and they break it down into simpler pieces. For example, in our saliva, we have an enzyme that's called salivary amylase. And salivary amylase is an enzyme that will break starch into simple sugars. That's its job. So if you chew up a piece of bread, you chew up a cracker that's high in starch, in your saliva, these enzymes are going to be breaking down that starch into sugars. In fact, if you take like one saltine cracker, chew it up, keep it in your mouth for a long time, let it get all mushy and soak the saliva, after a little while, it'll start to taste sweet because the starch in that cracker is being digested by your saliva into some simple sugars. Right? And so that happens with our saliva. That's where chemical digestion begins, in our mouth. And we have special glands. They're called salivary glands. They're sort of back in your jaw and in the back of your cheeks. And they have some little openings in your mouth. And every once in a while, they squirt a little spray of saliva into your mouth. And, you know, they do it all the time when it's needed. But if you start... sometimes if you start thinking about food and you're hungry, your mouth waters. Have you heard that saying? That's because thinking about food starts that process of the saliva being released in your mouth to get you ready to eat. Or if you've ever been reading a book or something, or on your phone and you yawn at the same time that your salivary glands were spraying saliva in your mouth, you sometimes get a little spray of saliva on the book that you're reading or whatever. Have you never seen that before?
Yeah.
Yep. So you can, that little spray comes out. It's just because your mouth happened to be open when your salivary gland was spraying saliva into your mouth.
Isn't it like underneath your tongue?
Yeah, there's some under your tongue, like in the sides of your cheeks.
Is that why sometimes people spit when they're talking?
Could be. I mean, because you saliva. Basically, you swallow lots of it. You can spit it out, but it's in your mouth. Your salivary glands keep creating more saliva. So yeah, that starts in our mouth. That's where digestion begins. Then from there, the food travels through our esophagus. So when you swallow your food, it moves through this tube. Okay, basically connects the back of your mouth into your stomach. It's called your esophagus. It's about 25 centimeters long. And it's a muscular tube. It's made of these muscles that contract one after the other. And it squeezes the food into your stomach. The food doesn't fall into your stomach because of gravity. It's not like you swallow and it's like boom. Okay? What happens is the muscles in your esophagus, they start, the top one squeezes, then the next one, and the next one, and the next one. It's kind of like squeezing toothpaste out of a tube. As it contracts, it squeezes that food down into your stomach. Okay? It's called peristalsis, is that contraction of those muscles to squeeze food into your stomach. You could drink a glass of water standing on your head through a straw if you wanted to, because the muscles are that strong that they push it up into your stomach.
Does it take a long time? Or is
No, it just happens right away. Yep,
Oh.
swallow it. You ever swallow a big chunk of a Dorito or something you didn't chew well enough and you can feel it sort of scraping down your esophagus until it gets to your stomach? Also, there's something that happens sometimes called reverse peristalsis.
Is that when you puke?
That's when you vomit.
Can we not think about this?
Your esophagus contracts in the other way, expelling food from your stomach into your mouth. As food gets into your stomach, that's where a large portion of digestion begins, because your stomach is little muscular little bag of strong acids and enzymes. So once that food gets into your stomach, it's a very acidic environment. And those acids start to really break down that food. And you have other enzymes that break down the nutrients. And so the food stays in your stomach for a while, being broken down further and further until it's into this liquidy, soupy sort of glop that we call chyme. And this chyme, and then once it's broken down fine enough, it can start to pass on through your small intestine.
Is that what makes it into the shape of
Eventually, once it gets to the large intestine, yeah. But, so you probably know this if you've ever gotten sick after eating. If you throw up soon after you ate, the foods are still fairly recognizable. But if it's been 3 or 4 hours, it's like soupy, gross stuff. And it doesn't taste as good as it did going down. Why?
Because acid.
Because now it's mixed, with these acids and stuff, and so it tastes really bad. Sometimes if people that vomit very frequently, if a person with bulimia makes themselves throw up multiple times a day, over time that stomach acid can start to eat away at their tooth enamel because those acids interact with their teeth. Can damage their esophagus by this stomach acid constantly coming back up. If a person gets heartburn, anyone ever think they had heartburn before?
Yeah, I like
So it has nothing to do with your actual heart. What it is acid from your stomach creeps up into your esophagus and starts to irritate it. And that's what causes a burning sensation in your chest. You can correct it by eating Tums, which neutralize the acid so that the acid sort of settles down. And that's what heartburn is. It's that stomach acid creeping up into your esophagus. Gio?
Is it like when you have hiccups? Does you see drink water and
Yeah, they say lots of things, but I don't think any of it's real.
I tried that.
It may work once in a while, but
But what are they?
hiccups have to do with your respiratory system. It's a spasm of your diaphragm. Jacob?
How hot?
Hot?
Stomach, like temperature.
I don't think it's body temperature, really. I don't think it's any hotter than normal temperature.
What if you got?
Or
It feels
what?
like burning hot inside you.
The other thing is that, what was I going to say? Yes, there was any other questions about stomach acids or those things? Jacob?
What if your
esophagus?
Yeah. So you can like.
You can have it also, if a person has heartburn like all the time, like every day for years, that stomach acid that's in their esophagus can start to eat away at the inside of it and can cause damage. And so sometimes people have to be treated for that. You could take medicines which reduce your stomach acid levels so you don't get that heartburn and don't damage your esophagus. The other thing is, your esophagus goes obviously from the back of your mouth down into your stomach. But you have another tube in front of it. What's the one that's in front of your esophagus called? No? It's called your trachea. So you have these two tubes going down your neck. The esophagus for food, the trachea for what?
Air.
Air. You have a little flap on your trachea that closes when you swallow so no food gets in there. If food does happen to get in there, what do we call it?
Choking.
You're choking, and air can't get down there, and you're choking. You can't get air in your trachea.
Is that the same thing that happens when like you drink water and then you go turn
Yeah, people say, oh, it went down the wrong tube. Well, it really kind of did. If you swallow your water, but some of it happens to go down your trachea, what do you start doing? Coughing, like spurting out, because basically that's your body's reaction trying to get that water out. You're not supposed to have water in your respiratory system. It's called drowning. Yep. If you get a windpipe, your trachea can collapse, it can be damaged. It's got these rings of cartilage around it that reinforce it, make it pretty strong. We'll get there when we talk about the respiratory system. Dan?
If a small enough piece of food gets inside, like through, can it just go into your lungs?
It can, and then it eventually just sort of gets broken down by your body. Jacob?
Don't people put like swords down like their throats down like their
Yeah,
stomach?
some people can.
Doesn't
Yeah.
it like mess up their stomach?
Well, they're not like sharpened real swords, but some people can. They put their head back so that it's like everything's in a line. They kind of and put that sword. It goes all the way down their esophagus and maybe even into their stomach.
I was fake, and then like when it.
No, it's real. It's really real. Yeah. It's got to be everything aligned correctly, and then no. Do not try at home. It's not good for you.